Hey, what is up, guys? On this episode of Blood, Sweat, and Gear, we tackle listener questions from our live Facebook audience, from our Facebook group, Advices Radio, and from the Intense Muscle message board. If you guys want to take part in the next episode, comment below with your questions. We'll tackle them on the next show. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Blood, Sweat, and Gear. I'm Scott McNally with Skip Hill and S2H. Guys, this program is brought to you by TrueNutrition.com. You could use our code ADVICES for some additional savings. Everything's third-party tested, high-quality supplements. What is up, gentlemen? Guys, we've got Skip Hill, 20 years, I'm going to say, of contest prep and dieting experience, clients. And we've got S2H. He's our go-to expert with all the weird and random compound and drug stuff that we would never think to ask about. We're going to tackle your questions. We got a bunch of questions from the Advices Facebook page that we've been collecting up. What is up, guys? Everybody watching live, thanks for joining us. Skip Hill, what's going on, man? How you been? All right.
No, I'm not usually at a loss for words. I don't know, man. It's Sunday. I just got back from the gym. I'm still stinky, sweaty. Sat down, had my, I was eating there, choking my food down at the last minute. So I'm still adjusting to this training on the weekend bullshit.
Yeah. Why? What's the difference? Why are you training on the weekend now?
I'm on a rotation. I don't normally do that. For years and years and years, I would have all of my training. I almost had to, with kids, and I just had so much going on that and it worked well. So I always kept it that way. It was basically Monday through Friday. Sometimes if I missed something during the week, then I would end up in there on a Saturday. But now I'm on a two on, one off rotation, and it changes all the time. And I like the rotation. It's just sometimes it makes your Saturday or Sunday, for me anyway, sometimes feel like a Tuesday or a Thursday.
Because that's what you're used to, right?
Yeah. It's really not much different.
Yeah.
So,
I always trained on the weekends when I worked for the pop company, the soda company, for anybody not from Michigan or Canada.
Right. Right.
And I liked it because I always felt like, oh man, now I don't have to work and like bust my ass all day. So now I can train legs. You know what I mean? So like to me, weekend was always like prime training time. But yeah, I don't train as much on the weekend. I think it's because there's a lot more people there on the weekend. That's the other thing that's different, right?
Well, and I have, my kids are off school, and we're down to one, but she still doesn't have school on the weekends, and my wife doesn't have work on the weekends. So it just sometimes seems better to just cram it all during, the week, and then by the weekend you just don't have as much to do, and you have a little more downtime, spend family time, and, do more. I don't want to say do more fun stuff because I enjoy training, but, I've trained long enough that there are more than a few things I would rather do on a Saturday or Sunday than train.
Yeah. What's up with you, Scott? How you been, man?
I'm good, man. It's perfect timing because my favorite show is on for 2 hours before we start this, so it ends right when this starts.
What's your favorite show that's on for 2 hours?
Major League Fishing on the Outdoor Channel.
Oh, Major League Fishing.
Like a fishing tournament on TV.
Huh, okay.
Yeah, I'm easily entertained.
See, I didn't even think people watched that. I mean, I don't know. I flip through the channels, I see it, and I wonder, who would watch this? Now I know.
Yeah. I think it's the number one show on the Outdoor Channel.
Is that right? Yeah. Well, what other shows would there be? What else is there? Hunting?
On that channel, or?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of them, but I like that one, and then I go watch American Picker reruns after this.
That's a good show. Hey, what's an RO, Scott? Is S2H the RO on his range?
Oh, well, everyone's an RO.
What's an RO?
Range officer.
Oh, okay. Huh. Dude, Skip, I saw Scott shooting some stuff on a video. Like, he's really good. Like, really good. Like, his ability to hit those metal targets out there, he just pulls his gun out and he's like, bing, 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 bing. And that's it.
Yeah, with
It's all
technology,
staged.
with technology the way it is these days, did you actually see the bullet hit it? Because ping, ping, ping.
That's
can
that's
easily
true.
be,
Sound effects. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't, unless I saw the bullet hit it. I mean, I would assume he's probably pretty good. He's well versed. He's been in the. How long did you spend in the military?
8 years.
Okay, 8 years, but you've also done like stealthy stuff you can't talk about for the since you were in the military. So there's that.
Yeah.
I'm Major League Fishing. That's
I'm being
my stealth.
presumptive. Yeah, I'm being presumptive, but I think there's some stealthy shit in there. So I wouldn't be surprised if he could. Let's put it this way: if I was hanging out with someone and there was a whole bunch of shit, I'd probably want to be hanging out with Scott, and I'd probably feel pretty comfortable.
Like if the shit went down.
Yeah, and if I was carrying, I'd be like, I'll just let him pull on him.
Best thing to do is to avoid the shit.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. We got a bunch of questions. I'll dive right in here, see what we got. There's some fun stuff in here too. We have one question that pits you two guys against one another, and I wanna dig into that a little bit later today. We've got a question about Area 51 for Scott. So there is that. What was that question that you had here, Scott? Let me see if I can pull that one up. You had a couple questions that somebody had sent you. Here we go.
Do you have them?
Yeah, I think I've got them here. Okay. So we've got some bodybuilding stuff. We've got some off-topic stuff. We've got some actual like drug questions and a bunch more. But okay, I'm going to start here. I've got your question, Scott. This is more of a general question. We'll start with, I guess. What's the one thing some clients do in regards to a coach's given plan that drives you nuts and or impedes the client's progress? The one thing?
Yeah, I know, right? One.
Skip, go ahead.
Yeah, that's awesome because there's a shit ton of them. So to pick one is very difficult.
What do you see happen often that people do? That kind of undermine.
I mean, it's just typically, I think it's the diet. I think most people, when it comes to training and stuff like that, can adhere to it. You have people dipping out on cardio and things like that. But you know what? I would probably say this, and I would say that the worst thing, and this is off the top of my head, but I think the worst thing is when a client does anything they're not supposed to and they don't tell you.
Ooh, yeah.
Because at least if you fuck up or you make a mistake or you just literally fall on your face or fall off the wagon, whatever the hell you want to call it.
Yeah. If
you're transparent about it and you're honest, it makes sense to your coach why then you're not responding. Or you know what? Sometimes it can be a positive reaction if you do fall off your diet. You had a cheat meal and then you look and you go, oh shit, okay. They were flatter than they needed to be. I mean, it has happened, I'm sure, not only to me, but to other people. And then you're like, well, shit, I needed to know that. When you can see visually that things change, or even just in feedback that people give you when they check in, you might not even see a picture. And you can tell by their feedback that something is it's just not right. Well, I say you can tell if you've been doing it a long time and you're asking the right questions, and they're giving you details instead of just giving you vague feedback. But there's just a lot of things that you can look for. I mean, if people tend to be very detailed when they give you feedback and all of a sudden they're vague, I mean, there's just some flags there. But I would say that, and you guys might think of one that I'm not thinking of right now, but I know that's the number one. At least own it. It's the number one pet peeve because it doesn't help the client and it doesn't help the trainer. And then it's just a fucking guessing game from there.
Yeah. 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 I feel like sometimes too, people think that like you're going to have this answer. Like you just know what to do next, but you throw somebody a curveball, you throw your coach a curveball like that. It can be like, we're just people too. You know what I mean? It's like if you don't follow the plan, I can't tell you like, well, what do you need to do now? I don't know. Well,
there's a second part to that too that I don't want to forget.
What's that?
And I think this is noteworthy. If you do fuck up with your diet, and this typically happens if it's more than like a meal. Sometimes people blow off like a day because they were with a friend or they had a friend in town, something.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just telling every client out there, if you really want to irritate your coach, fucking up is one thing, but don't come to your coach and then expect your coach to change your plan to compensate for your fuck up.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's not how it works. If it were that easy, then really, if you have a trainer who's doing that, all they're doing really is encouraging you without knowing, because if you're going to get a different plan to make up for the mistakes, then you're going to continue to make mistakes. So as a trainer, if you don't do that, and let's just say you could make up for those mistakes.
Yeah.
You still don't want to, because it would, like I said, continue that pattern of behavior that just isn't, it's not beneficial to the client or to you. So that's a big pep. It doesn't happen very often, but it is kind of funny because I'll sit there and laugh. And then, of course, I don't laugh at them when I respond, but I'm laughing going, yeah, nice try. And I'm usually very brief and just will say, no, you just stick to the plan, you get back on, and you put your head down and you execute, and we'll forget about it.
Yeah.
If it's the first time.
Yeah, that's a good point, though. And I wonder, I feel like sometimes people don't realize what they're asking you to do if they ask you to change the plan. It's not like they're intentionally, you know what I mean? It's like they don't necessarily realize that they're setting themselves up to continue making mistakes. All they see is like, oh, I fucked up, and should I do double cardio tomorrow? Should I pull all my I can pull all my carbs for the next 2 days, and yeah, that's a mess, man. Scott, what about you, man?
I think Skip covered most of what I would say. I would just say in general that, especially if they try to get their own, the good idea fairy shows up and they decide to start doing their own thing or something additional, and then it goes like a month, and then I guess the thing that would annoy me is if it goes like a month and all of a sudden they're like, I think this plan's not working. Well, but I didn't eat meal 6 any of the days, and I didn't do, and then there's all these 3 or 4 little things they didn't do. And it's like, you're not a miracle worker, because I don't think people sometimes realize that it's not like a set, like if someone's hires, like let's say they hire Skip for 24-week prep, they're not in that great of shape. He's got a general idea what he's going to do in that 24 weeks, but it's not like it's set in stone. It's not like it's in a book written down.
Right.
So if you start to alter, every time you start to change things on your own, and especially when you don't tell somebody, that just slows the whole plan down. It makes it more difficult. And then a lot of people want a miracle, at that point. So you're better off being just straight up and being punctual with your deviations than especially waiting. Like going, oh, dude, for the last 3 weeks, I haven't been doing this, and this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think, Skip, having built a name for yourself in this industry over the years, do you feel like you get that less often now? Because I know talking to Shelby Starnes, he said, like, well, most of the people who hire me, they're hiring me because they know who I am, they know the work I do, and they want to follow the plan.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. I think that competitors tend to be, more disciplined when it comes to diet and things like that. However, it's the competitors, though, who won't tell you.
Yeah.
Because when it does happen, and look, I'll say this, and I know this is going to really piss people off.
Hold on,
and it might
guys,
surprise some people too, but everybody at some point caves.
Yeah.
It is incredibly uncommon, incredibly rare that someone doesn't, and I'm talking high level dudes who've been competing and are veterans for years and years and years. They all at some point will fall on their face, lose their shit, throw their hands up in the air and go, I don't give a fuck, I got to eat. And then it becomes how much, whether they're lying about it, whether it's a little bit or whether if it's just this ongoing, binge, for, a 3-day bender, if you want to call it that. But I do think that the regular, I don't want to say regular people, but the normal people, I say normal because competitors, by and large, were not terribly normal. I don't think.
I think coaches nowadays, they like to use the abbreviation Gen Pop.
Yeah, well, they can use that.
What is it?
Gen Pop. General
Yeah, but
population.
because then the person who came up with that stupid moniker gets credit at some point, and it'll be somebody I don't like, so I'm not going to use that.
Yeah.
But I just think that I think normal people are more honest, because I think that they understand. They know you understand. Okay, I'm not a competitor. I'm not trying to win the Mr. Olympia, so it's a little bit different for me. That sort of thing. But yeah, I would agree. I would agree that the people that come to me now, you know what though? Here's the other thing that I need to be careful of. The people who, Shelby and I are different in the sense that, 90, I don't know if it's 95, but I'm using a number to make my point. 95% of the people who end up coming to Shelby usually are, he's got a lot of very, very competitive top tier competitors.
Sure.
So with something like that, that's just, they're programmed in like a robot, and they should be. I mean, that's how they got to that point, by and large. So you have to understand that these days I'm not working with the level of competitor, the amount of competitors, as far as a percentage. So, I mean, even at my peak, when I was doing peak contest prep, I would say that I probably was still at 50-50.
Okay.
And the truth is I like the off-season clients too, and I like the normal people. The normal people, and look, I got to be careful here because I don't want to step on your toes or sound disrespectful, because not everybody falls into this. But generally, competitors are in their heads so bad, and they question everything, not question the information given them like it's wrong or anything else, but they just question everything because it's almost like anxiety.
Yeah.
Like the deadline is looming and it could be 18 weeks out, and I did this, and there's just a lot more to it. The Gen Pop people they've maybe never been in really, really good condition. When they do, they're so fucking happy, and they're like, oh my God. And but then you get the competitors who they can be in their best condition ever. They could have topped what they did before, but because they took second, you're a shitty prep coach. So, there's just, it's like I said, I want to be careful because I don't want to make blanket statements. I'm just saying there is a difference, and there are things that I like about the competitors, but there's also things that I like about the people who don't compete and are never going to compete either.
Sure. There's less stress too, I think, as a coach, when you don't have, you don't have to do, like, everything becomes so time sensitive at the end of a contest prep. You know what I mean? And it's not like you're doing something for people. It's not like you're giving people secrets that they're not getting. You know what I mean? As a contest prep client, they're not getting like a secret that you're not getting as a non-competitor, but you are getting a lot more time. And at least, like, you have to do a lot more check-ins toward the end usually. And it's stressful, man. And then there's the pressure of, listen, even if, say, this guy didn't follow your plan 100%, if he does not do well, you are going to take a fall.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
No question. He could totally fuck up, and you're going to take the fall because your name and your brand is on them. The other thing is client retention. Client retention is nowhere near the same with competitors as it is with, people who, I call them transmogrify clients, because that's what I call my plans that are not contest prep, because I'm a diehard Calvin and Hobbes fan from back in the day. So those are the people who, they might be competitors, but they don't maybe not competitors. They may be bodybuilders, but they don't compete. Yeah. Or they don't want to compete yet. Or they could just be regular, people who, they've heard about you and say, hey, I want to work with you. I've heard blah, 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 that sort of thing. So the client retention for the people who are not competitors is significantly longer, because when you're a competitor, you've got to work with everybody. Yeah. Because it doesn't matter how, good things go and everything else. It's very uncommon for a competitor these days to stay with the same prep guy. Oh, and I stand by the fact that I swear that the main reason is because everybody is also a prep guy. Yep. So they have to suck off of as many people as they can to learn the things all the shit they don't know. And then after working with 3, 4, 5, 6 people, then they have all this knowledge that they gained only from working with other people. And then they apply it to, of course, their new personal online training, program and clients and make money. So,
yeah, it is a different world, man. I just was thinking about that today because I saw this young guy that I know who's a really good bodybuilder coming up. And he's not somebody I've thought of as being like a really articulate, thoughtful, insightful person, but he is a guy who's been able to build a lot of muscle just because he just started lifting weights and got big as fuck is what it came down to. He's a really good bodybuilder. And I saw under his post, he was like, offering plans. I don't know why it surprised me because I stepped back and I thought about it. I was like, yeah, everybody offers plans. So it shouldn't surprise me that, it's definitely a different world today than it was 15 years ago. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It is. I know somebody, by the way, who's a high-end coach who was working with a guy long-term. He got to know him really well. I don't want to say any names here. They got to be, because you build a relationship, with your clients over time, and especially good contest prep client. You've seen them peak a bunch of times. It becomes like a team. You know what I mean? And this guy started undermining him and started deciding when he was going to carb up. He was a big dude. And he was like, I felt like I was going flat this week. He'd check in when he was supposed to check in and be like, yeah, I felt like I was going flat this week, so I didn't do any of the cardio this week. And I ate everything under the sun on Friday, because I had to fill out. And then he wasn't happy with how he looked. And I ended up getting a new coach.
I was going to say, he's got a fallback. He's got his guy, his prep coach to fall back on, even though he didn't follow anything of what he said. Yeah. So, yeah, it's one of those things where, I'm grateful for what I do and I enjoy what I do. But I think people from the outside looking in, they always see it as much rosier. Yeah. Than it actually is, I think, or maybe not than it actually is, but they just don't see or don't think there's any real negatives to it. They only see, the bright colors and how, the awesomeness of it all. Sure.
Yeah, no question. We got a bunch more questions here, so I'll go to something related to training. This dude's a biker, by the way, like in a gang biker. So. Oh, okay. Just gonna throw that out there. Scott, you might know him. I feel like you know bikers.
Why do I gotta know everybody?
I don't know. I just feel like you know people. I bet they have like a chapter in Texas. Wouldn't you think so, Skip?
Outlaw bikers?
I don't know if he's an outlaw or not. But
listen, most people who call, and I'm not giving the guy a hard time if he called himself. I don't know.
He didn't call himself a biker. He just is. Okay. He didn't have to.
That's what I say. Because some people do call themselves, and it's like you're just a dad middle-aged guy who has a wide glide that you ride on the weekend, and that's me. Yeah. I make no bones about it. I'm not a biker. I would never call myself a biker. Bikers are dudes who will fucking kill you, and they look like they haven't showered in 3 weeks and that sort of shit.
I think he showers because he lifts weights. He cares about himself,
Okay.
But
right. But he's a hard motherfucker.
I think. Yeah, I have a feeling he might be. But I'm kind of giving him shit just by saying all that. But his question, opposing muscle groups versus correlating muscle groups for a split. Like he said, he's finding he's a little bit newer to training, and I think he kind of turned his life around because I think he said he used to drink a lot and now he doesn't. Got into really good shape, lost a lot of fat, lifting weights now and stuff. But opposing muscle groups like it would be chest and biceps, for instance, versus correlating muscle groups, chest and triceps. I thought it might be an interesting topic to just kind of go around about a little bit. Is this, since we started with you before, Skip, I'll start with you again. Is this something that you've done before, like a chest and biceps type workout versus chest and triceps? And did you see anything different, anything you liked about that?
Now you said Skip or Scott? Because I don't want to cut in.
Okay. Either, really.
You always go first because he likes to watch me fall asleep. So,
yeah, I have, and I'm not a big fan. Yeah. And I think the reason is because, and I'm wondering what Scott's going to say about this as well. I think when you split them and you go opposing, you get into you don't get into recovery problems, but the recovery isn't as good. That's why the classic push-pull leg, even though some people would consider it, antiquated or archaic, it's pretty solid because it does. Is that the biker guy taking off?
Yes, the guy from the movie theater.
From Scott's house? Oh, okay. Well, he's a little early, about 15 minutes. But anyway.
Not early. Probably got to let go.
So I think what happens is you maximize recovery when you do, you get what I'm saying? Like the typical push-pull legs. And now if you have lagging body parts, if bis or tris are lagging, then you can get into a split like that. But you also have to be careful that you're not having issues with recovery, because if it's a lagging body part and then you cause issues with recovery, and the reason it would cause an issue with recovery is just if you're training it more frequently, because you're hitting biceps, say, with back, and then you're turning around and training biceps directly as well. If your back is weak, then you train biceps directly, and then a couple days later you're coming back and trying to train back heavy. That could be an issue. So when they're not opposing, when you just like I say, use the classic push-pull legs, then your recovery tends to be better or more maximized than if you're splitting them up differently than that.
I follow that. What do you think, Scott?
I actually used to do something like this, and it was mainly because I had more limited time to train during the week. So maybe do like chest, biceps, and then like back and legs one day, and then do like triceps, shoulders, traps, or something, cat, whatever. And so I wouldn't necessarily, like, a lot of people on back day want to do biceps but I always felt back day was pretty taxing. So I never really did arms, like I rarely ever did triceps and biceps together. So I would always mix them, but my triceps were always pretty good and didn't have any problem with them. My biceps weren't. So there was a lot of times I would never do tricep work, hardly at all. Maybe just some push downs or something after shoulder day or something, so yeah, I'd mix it up. I mean, some people have the theory that, the blood's going into your arms, all your arms at the same time, but I think it kind of depends on the person. If you have like a weaker body part or a better body part, maybe you want to do, let's say your biceps aren't the greatest, you're trying to build them up, maybe you want to do biceps separate, and then maybe on back day just do some like preacher curls, high rep at the end or something, kind of extra. But yeah, you can overtrain it. You got to kind of separate it out. But I was doing that when I only had like 3 days a week to train: Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Do you subscribe? Both of you guys, I'll ask you this. Do you subscribe to the idea that, use arms as an example, if there's blood in the triceps, then, that's beneficial to training, biceps right after triceps too, or even like doing supersets back and forth with bis and tris? I'm holding off with my opinion by asking you guys first.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Can you kind of elaborate just a little bit? Because you're saying, is there a benefit to? Yeah,
is there a benefit because the blood is basically already in the arm? Oh, it's in the tris.
Oh, I see.
You know what I'm saying?
I'll tell you this. One thing I'll say is I asked John Meadows about his tibialis training, because he'll train the front of his calf, and I said, well, why do you do that? I said, what's really the benefit there? Is that something you could really grow? And he said, what's the benefit of training bis and tris together? I was like, well, you get a lot of blood in your arms. And he was like, exactly. He was like, I just want my calves to feel like they're going to pop. So I try to push as much blood into both muscles, both sides as possible. So I guess, I'll tell you what, here's one thing I noticed. I remember early on, like, if I can get a good pump, I'm more likely to like stay fuller. And I don't know if it's just inflammation or what, but like I feel like I grow better. If I can get a good pump, I can volumize the muscle. I feel like there is a benefit to that. So I feel like you're going to say that you're against it. So I'm looking for a way to try to go against you, basically. Yeah.
Well, I saw that you were defending John. So, and I'm not defending him, but because you probably understand what my position is. So here's what I say to this.
Yeah.
I and you guys know this, but I'll say this for the listeners too. I mean, I have huge respect for John and his knowledge and experience. And, you know, I, of course, value your opinion as well. But I'm put everybody's opinion and experience aside for a second. I'm just going to tell you honestly, I think the whole concept is total dog shit.
You do.
Horseshit.
You do. You think
I do.
Putting blood in the muscle isn't beneficial?
I do. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is if it's in the tricep, it's not in the arm necessarily. It's in the fucking tris.
Yeah.
So there's absolutely in from a logical standpoint to me, just to me.
Yeah.
If you're going to train bis, you got to move the blood from the tricep to the biceps. It's not like it's just sitting there in the arm going, now I'll jump over here into the bicep. I mean, it's just two completely separate muscles. There is a small argument, I think, and when John was saying about lower body train. Okay, that's a little bit different because that is getting about as far away from the heart as you possibly can. So if you do have higher blood volume, you know, below the knee from training calves, that potentially could be beneficial. I think what it comes down to that bothers me is this. I think that most people long ago, like 3 decades ago, really just thought, wow, you know, my arms are just blown. They're so much bigger because while they're training, and that's a big ego boost. I love that shit too. I train tris and bis together. I just don't do it because I think that it's going to benefit either one. I just do it because it's a direct arm day. I've trained, you know, back, chest, and shoulders and legs, and now it's fucking arm day, or arms and calves, that sort of shit. So apparently my arms and calves are never going to grow because the arms are too far away from the calves, and the calves are too far away from the arms. But that's really how I feel about it. I don't think that there is, personally, I just don't think there's any connection there at all. I would love to and that's why I asked you guys, I would love to debate it just to hear more of an in-depth reason if somebody actually, you know, if someone has a reason other than it just feels like they're going to pop. Well, no shit they do. I concur. But that to me doesn't. Yeah. You know.
I feel
like
if
you train your biceps like on Monday and they get pumped up with blood, and you train your triceps on Thursday and they get pumped up with blood, is that any different than doing them on the same day when they get pumped up with blood?
Well,
no,
and I
don't think so. Exactly. I don't think so. It's still getting pumped up.
Right, exactly. I think what they might be insinuating, and I mean I'm being presumptive, I'm guessing, is like I say, if the blood is already in the arm, because I've heard people say that before, then that somehow I don't know, adds to growth. It just seems a little, it doesn't make sense to me logically, because the blood is in the fucking tricep. So I mean, you know, I'm trying to explain it simplistically, but okay, all the blood is in the muscle. Now it's got to go back up, and then it's got to go to the fucking bicep, back down the arm again. It doesn't just, there's the bicep, I'm just going to jump right over there and pump the shit out of the bicep. You know, it just doesn't sit well with me because it doesn't seem logical.
It's not like getting milk from your neighbor. You know?
Right, exactly.
Hey, can I have some milk?
Right.
Yeah.
You could just walk across the lawn. No, you got to walk up the driveway, down the road, and up the driveway again. Then they probably wouldn't be sharing milk. I don't know, but you get what I'm saying. To me, it just doesn't seem terribly logical. And the other, you know, I mean, they'll have supersets based on that for that reason. Same with back and chest. And I just think to myself, okay, and you know, you could argue too. I mean, okay, antagonistic muscle groups, you know, when the triceps work, the biceps work as an antagonistic. Yeah, it's a reach. I'm just not buying it. To me, I don't like the reasoning.
I had to hit mute there. I was opening up our video to look at it for a minute, seeing who else was. I see a bunch of comments here. We've got some more questions, guys. Thanks everybody for who's watching live. We'll get to those questions shortly. We do have a bunch of other stuff though. What about let's go to a TRT question. What do you think about adding Decca to TRT? Someone recently just asked this question on one of the more, I can't remember what show it was. Maybe we answered it on BNR, but what about Decca as part of a TRT program? I feel like this is where you shine, Scott.
Well, if you put Decca into a TRT program, you're not on TRT.
Thank you.
You're now on DTRT. So I mean, that's if you're adding testosterone replacement therapy, that's testosterone.
Yeah.
So if you're adding Decca in, you're doing a cycle.
There you go. That's what I was waiting for.
So that's my answer.
Yeah.
Well, what about dosing? What if you keep the Decca real low? Like I know
Okay.
VJ was his doctor prescribed him, I think it was 80 test and 60 Decca per week.
That's
It's a
cool
steroid.
TRT
It's a steroid.
Yeah.
It's a steroid.
Yeah,
So
but
you're
so
taking
it's
steroids.
testosterone, right?
But I mean,
But
it is what it is. I mean, if you're going to take it, take it. I mean,
Yeah.
I do whatever you want. But with something like that, it's like, I mean, it's like if you come up here and ask like something like, hey, should I take DNP every 3 weeks? No, I'm going to tell you you're a complete idiot and you shouldn't do that. But I mean, if you're going to take some Decca, take it. I mean, I don't know, just do the 2-to-1 ratio, test 2-to-1 to the Decca and give it a run, see what happens. That's all you can do.
Well,
you might be. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Scott.
Well, I just was going to probe further, but what were you going to say?
Well, what I was wondering was when you were talking about which show, it might have been the show we just did with Jeff Black, because weren't we talking about Decca? And he said, because I had said that I don't like Decca, and when Decca is when the ratio
We
is
were
out of
talking
whack,
about
or if
low dose tests with Decca.
Right.
That's what we were talking about that day.
yeah,
I'd say he's an anomaly in that sense.
I know. I was thinking the same. I was thinking the same thing, and that's all the more reason, though, that even the guy asking this question, should you try it out? Yeah, absolutely, you should, because that's exactly how you're going to figure out how well it works, or if it just doesn't.
Yeah.
And at least you're going to know. I mean, okay, the downside is you know what, it doesn't work very well, and maybe you have Decadic for 3 weeks, but you're going to know, and you're going to be like, yeah, I'm not going to fucking do that again because I experimented with it, didn't work for me. Because some people, it will work and it'll work great, and sometimes it's better. I was adding up when you said that. I mean, it sounds like his test in Decca is about 160
Yeah.
a week, which is
Like 140, I think.
still it's still TRT dosing, but
Yeah.
I'm with Scott. I just think that when you add a NOR, you're not going to get, if you polled 500 TRT doctors, you're going to get one of them to prescribe you
Right.
Decca.
At all. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just not gonna, and I don't know that it shouldn't be, maybe the combination of a testosterone and a NOR isn't a bad idea. I'm not a fan of Decca at all. I am of NPP, I guess, a little, but I just straight flat Decca. I just hate that shit.
So did you ever get any of and this is what I was going to ask Scott, so I wanted to know from both of you guys. Have you ever gotten like the joint relief from Decca that everybody talks about? Because I don't feel like I ever really had.
No.
No. All right. So there is that. Yeah, he said he's an old guy too. So I'm guessing old guy who wants to run Decca with his TRT. He's probably thinking joint relief,
And you know what? Do it. Like Scott said, do it. And, we're just arguing the semantics. Yeah. We're just arguing whether it's TRT or not.
Yeah.
We're not arguing whether you should do it or not. Fucking do it. Do it and see how it goes. In fact, you know what? Go 500 test sip and go 400 Decca and just ride that bitch as long as you can ride it. and then back off to TRT.
All right. We've got some more drug questions here. What was that question I got? It was one of your people, Skip, had sent it over. Here it is. Let's see. So this person PM'd you this because he said it was too personal. So we're going to go a little bit off topic here. After decades of marriage, I'm curious to know what kind of things you and Melissa do to stay engaged or close, and what do you think the keys are to a successful relationship? May sound like a dumb analogy, but I have come to view my marriage like my physique. If in the event that you want to maintain it, it takes a certain level of work and effort. To grow takes even more. In my experience with both, if you aren't paying attention or putting in the effort, a marriage can go to shit faster than a physique. I am going on my 13th year of marriage, and things are good, but don't want that to change at all, as we have been through the bad and we have learned from it. I look at you guys. I look at guys like you who have 20 plus years of a good marriage, and I think you can offer some good advice to the younger crowd, as well as guys like me that want a strong, successful marriage. That's a good question.
Yeah. And one that, at least in relation to bodybuilding, I'm not usually asked. But Scott, how long have you been married?
Which time?
I didn't mean to put you on. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. If you got to go check a Google calendar.
No, total. It's
you know, I'll just text your wife and ask her. Hold on.
No, hold on. Let me think. Total years. 18, something like that.
Okay, I figured it was 20. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so we'll have to compare notes then with Scott and I. I just found out
I have a soundboard. Could you guys hear that?
What was it?
I added applause on that. No? Okay. Just never mind.
Applause.
Never mind. I've got a soundboard though. Go ahead.
Anyway, I don't like the reference that, though I'm going to agree with him, with the guy asking the question. It sometimes is work, but I don't like to look at it like that, because I think that if it's too much work, there are questions as to whether you should be in the relationship. And listen, here's the thing. I don't have all these like secrets or awesome answers. I've been fortunate enough that my wife is cool. The shit that we have been through, we end up working out. I mean, we had a rough, 6 months the end of last year, and it was fucking rough. But her mom died, which is huge. Obviously that's going to be rough, but the kids were also empty nesting. And if you, haven't empty nested, I know until I didn't think it was that big of a deal. It's had a huge impact on her. So there's just been some things that happen that you everything can be sailing smoothly and everything looks good. And then all of a sudden some shit can just come out of nowhere that isn't about cheating or, money or the typical things that you would think you would fight about, that you might even fight about, or jealousy, shit like that early on in relationships. It's the stuff later in relationships becomes things that you just don't even see, and they come out of fucking nowhere. So it's difficult for me to give advice, because we've been very, very fortunate that as we have gotten older, that we have kept a lot of the same interests and parallels. And sometimes you can see that you're going off in two different directions. It can be schedules with work, or interests and hobbies, or friends, things like that. And you do have to make sure, I think that's where the effort comes in. You got to be able to see it, and you got to be able to make the other person, make sure that the other person sees it so that they aren't missing it as well. And then have the desire to come back around and make the changes to not continue to go in different directions, I guess. So I don't know that there's any, you don't see it as secrets and shit like that, do you? But you see it as work, right, Scott? I mean, sometimes it is work, but I just think if it's work all the time, that just shouldn't happen.
I think there's a couple of rules I go by. Leave it as you found it. That means don't be a slob. Pick up after yourself, because guys aren't the best at that. The other one is, what you don't think is a big deal may be a big deal to the other half.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
When you kind of, and I'm guilty of this, like when you kind of forget it's like their birthday or Valentine's Day, and they know when you go cheesy and just grab some at the grocery store on the way home.
Sure, they do. Yeah.
So I mean, but a lot of things, just like, okay, like my wife, my vocabulary used to be bad. It's better now, but there's certain words that she doesn't like.
Like, can you give us an example?
I like the F word.
Okay.
So
notice he said the F word. He didn't.
So so you have to be cautious of, just because you think it's not that big of a deal. That goes back to that part. You think it's not a big deal if you drop an F bomb every once in a while. Well, yeah, maybe to you it's not a big deal, but to her it is. So. you know, and that goes both ways. It's too, and I'd say the other thing is, don't get locked into a monotonous routine. Like we go, like try to go once a week to the movies and go out to eat and do something normal.
Yeah.
And I mean, everybody works, life's hectic, but you can't use that as an excuse, because if you get locked into a monotonous routine, it's gonna repeat itself over and over, and that's where kind of the distance is driven in between, you know, stuff like that. And that's about all I can say.
That's a pretty good point, because that came up over the last 6 months, because we had just, you know, we've only been down here a couple of years, so we don't know a lot of people. So we're not doing as much. And you add the fact that we don't have the kids anymore. We used to take the kid. I mean, you know, it was because of the kids primarily that we would have baseball, you know, season tickets for baseball. So we were always at the park, or we would take them line dancing every Sunday night to get line dance lessons at the Grizzly Rose. I mean, things that you might think are cheesebally, but they were fun, and, you know, huge memories of us always doing shit. Snowmobiling, boarding, you know, taking the kids snowboarding. I mean, we were always doing shooting. We take them to the fucking range. I mean, we did a lot of shit. And now that the kids are gone and we're here, motorcycle riding, we aren't riding our motorcycles. So we weren't doing anything. So there was no real fun shit to take her mind off of the shitty shit. And that became my issue, because I didn't care a whole lot about it while she did. So that comes back to your point, Scott, which is a very good point. You may not think shit might be very important to you, but the other person in the relationship carries half of the worth in that relationship, and you better not forget that. That shit will only make you'll end up single if you lose track of that.
McNally's taking notes. He's like,
I should be. I should be. Victoria and I are going to be together it's going to be 1 year in a week.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. I got my...
Don't forget.
What is it? Oh, it's a picture. I don't have my glasses on, so I wasn't.
I'm going to get emotional here in a minute.
The people at home can see it.
But it was last year, right around the Arnold?
It was just after the Arnold. Yeah, but the Arnold was like a little bit earlier. And, you know, we both really care about each other a lot, and we're both old enough, mature enough to know that it does take work, but you know, we know that it's not work right now, because we're still just in love and excited to see each other, and, you know, all of that. But we know that it is something that takes work. So we do, you know, one thing we do that she thought was a good idea, and sometimes we get away from it, but I like when we do this. We have questions that we ask each other at the end of the night to kind of like check in with each other. And the questions are like, you know, what excited you about today? What was your biggest challenge today? Stuff like that. And just by doing those things, it kind of keeps us plugged in with one another, kind of keeps us checked in. And another thing that we do is that we make sure that we have a date day for Friday that we take, because both of us could work nonstop. I'm sure you can relate to this, Skip. If you wanted to, you could work nonstop, never take a day off, you know? And I've been guilty of doing that. But yeah, so our goal is to take Fridays off to do something together. So it's not, I mean, I don't have no, 20, 30 years of experience, but I have made mistakes in my life. And I was in a relationship where, we were together for a long time, and we ended up like just letting it burn out is really what it came down to. And we ended up being like good friends, but that was really about it. And you know what, man, I'm not getting any younger. I don't want to let that happen again. So.
Well, and I think it's a good point that you made, though. You may not be in a relationship for 20 or 30 years, but a lot of this is fucking common sense and giving a shit. Yeah. What happens when people are in relationships for a long time is they become complacent and they don't give a shit. Even, your typical person who doesn't care about working out or whatever, it's funny because they get, out of shape and everything else. But if their ass was single, they'd all of a sudden drop 30 pounds because they got to go out on the market. So that's complacency. Right. And I think that plays a huge part. There's just a lot of shit there. It's common sense stuff. It's being honest. It's communicating. Yeah. Your partner should not wonder where you stand. In fact, I would say err on the side of being blunt and borderline insensitive. I say borderline because not to be shitty or disrespectful, but you want to make sure that they understand exactly how you feel versus not knowing it all and having to guess. Because then when they don't know because you didn't tell them, that's not on them for not knowing. Yeah. It's on you for not telling them. So I think communication, honestly, there's a lot of common sense stuff in there that honestly I don't think has a lot to do with 20 or 30 years. I will say though that over the long haul, and I think this is important, the issues, and I'll see if Scott agrees with me or not, the issues do change. I brought it up earlier about, jealousy or money when you're younger becomes an issue. You're raising kids. But when you get older, there's different stuff. It's not the insecure stuff anymore. It's little things that can creep up, whether it be, like I said, like a death or
throwing your
kids leaving
in the sink and not in the dishwasher.
Yeah. But like not just once or twice, but you continue to do it, and they never say anything, or they don't say, and then all of a sudden it's just this huge issue because they've kept, and you have fucking pissed them off for a very long time, and they can't fucking take it anymore. Things like that, and then they blow up from something that could be relatively small, and then it becomes a big issue. But there's just different things that you'll deal with as you get older. And the older you get, the more people fucking die around you, and the more sickness and death you deal with. And I'm telling you, sometimes I just think to myself, God, if this is the rest of my life, this blows, because like everybody's fucking dying.
Yeah.
Who's gonna die next? And it has, when it's close to you, it obviously has an impact on you and your spouse and the kids, that sort of shit.
All right, I'm going to change subjects here because we have a percentage of people that love the relationship stuff, and then there's a percentage of people who are like, "Oh my God, this is the worst ever. Why don't they just talk about bodybuilding?"
Yeah. Back to trend. Yeah. Let's talk about
exactly.
Skip.
Actually, you skip. Close, Skip. Close. Very close. We've got one about insulin, so we're gonna get back on our bro topics here. Is it okay to use a small dose of insulin post workout? Okay to use at that level for a long period of time. He says, and he's calling 10 units a small dose. I feel like 10 units isn't, if it's like Humalog, 10 units isn't small, is it?
Right. Yeah. I tell you what, cutting to what he said, I mean, what was the first line?
Is it okay to use a small dose? Yeah, basically long term.
Yeah, it's okay to do anything, and without giving the guy shit or sounding like a smartass. It's okay to do anything, whether it is beneficial in the sense. I mean, here's the questions that pop into my head: are you a fatty? Because insulin, unless you're lean and insulin sensitive, then you're not going to want to be causing yourself more insulin resistance by using and by. You always give me shit about this, and you're right. I don't finish sentences.
You get excited. That's why.
I know, but it's almost like I just assume that everybody knows. It's almost like my thought is an ellipsis, and then I go on to the next thing.
No. Like you expand upon it further. You redefine what you were first saying. You will.
I assume that everybody knows what I'm going to say, so I'm not going to finish that sentence.
You turn off the road before the road to turn on. You're in the ditch.
But it does. It comes down to the whether you're a fatty, what your goals are, that sort of shit. I'm not a big fan of post-workout insulin. I'm just not. I think it made a lot of people fat 15, 18 years ago. I think that the best way to use insulin is either on cheat or load days, refeed, whatever you want to call it, and pre-workout. I think it's great shit pre-workout. The funny thing is because then someone would say, well, if they knew me real well, like the Germinator, Alex, he might be like, but Skip, you don't use insulin, you use IGF. I would rather use IGF than insulin. So then I don't use insulin much anymore. So there's that. Scott, what do you pre-workout insulin?
Yeah, and then your cheat day, load days. But I think if you're going to use it long term, just monitor your blood glucose, keep an eye on it, because it's all subjective. What is long term? What is a lot?
Yeah,
exactly.
All that.
And you don't know right away. It's not like you're all of a sudden going to go, oh, yeah, I'm, because insulin, people don't understand, insulin resistance and insulin sensitive are relative terms. The best way I've tried to explain it to people is you're both. It's which one you're more of is a better way to look at it, because people tend to look at it as they are one or the other. And that's not typically, you don't just, I'm insulin resistant now. It's not percentage, but it's not all just I'm insulin resistant. It's relative. You are more insulin resistant than you were before, or you're more insulin sensitive or less insulin sensitive than you were before. So I think insulin personally, and I've changed my views on this a little bit over the last couple of years. I think it should be used the most when you're lean as fuck.
Yeah.
And I think as you get into a typical body fat level for an off season, unless you're just willing to risk, because it doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to put on a ton more body fat, but if you're not willing to risk putting on more body fat, then you shouldn't be using it, because really there's a very strong correlation between your body fat levels and insulin resistance / insulin sensitivity. It's if you don't believe that, then you don't understand the most common the most rudimentary rules, if you will, of insulin.
Yeah. I still feel like I'll go back to the dose, 10 units. That's not I wouldn't consider that small. Would you guys consider that small?
Middle of the road. I mean, I don't consider it huge, but I don't consider it small.
Yeah. I'd feel small is like I've seen guys that'll use 2, 3, 4 units, you know, and like micro dosing, they may do it a few times a day or something. But I mean, I've even seen a benefit from a few units. So, I mean, I'd consider small much less.
2 or 3 units. I mean, technically, you really don't even need a carbohydrate intake for. Your liver can adjust to a dose of 2 or 3 units without much problem, typically. Obviously, there's other outside influences that can play into that, but by and large, you can handle 2 or 3 without any compensation with carbs. And again, it comes to the timing. 10 IU, or I say 10 units, not 10 IU, but 10 units pre-workout versus 10 units post-workout. That's a big difference, because, well, you have to have that. You have to cover the insulin with your carbs, but you also have to take into consideration volume, how much you're training that day, whether you're training legs, what the demand is on your blood sugar levels, because you can just end up sweating your ass off thinking, yeah, it's really hot in here. Yeah, your fucking blood sugar is low. Yeah. Are you dieting? Are you in the off season? Things like that. You got to be careful. And I'm not saying 10 units pre-workout is real high.
But it's enough to mess you up if you didn't have enough carbs, right?
I wouldn't start that high.
No, I wouldn't either. And that's a good point that you make. I consider 10 units to be getting up there pre-workout. I consider that to be good, because people have to understand that, especially pre-workout, the game is not to try to see how much you can tolerate or how much you can use.
Thank you.
It's like, well, I got through that. I covered it. I had a really good workout. No. All you're really doing is making the process of feeding the muscle during your workout more efficient than without. That's really all you're doing. So people say, well, I'm not sure where it is. I'm not comfortable. Then just sit on 5 units. Sit on 4 or 5 units. Make sure you got intracarbs, even EAAs. People need to understand that EAAs alone, if you took 5 units, this is a typical person. So please understand what I'm saying. And I'm talking to the listeners, not you guys, but please understand what I'm saying. If you are a normal, typical, everyday, and you have a typical workout protocol, and you go in to train, chest and shoulders, you take 5 units of insulin prior, and you have, 30 or 40, well, not 30 or 40, you have, say, 20 grams of EAAs. Even without carbs at 4 or 5 units, you're probably going to be okay. You're probably not going to have hypo issues. You might be a little hungry. You might think, okay, I'm a little hungry. But that would be the hypo starting to come, but not to the point where you'd be like, oh my God, I'm going hypo. Now, throw in legs, high volume, a long workout, 2.5 hours. You're dieting, so your carbs are restricted. You start to get into shit like that, then they can play into it a little bit more. But the point is EAAs will cover your blood glucose levels for those smaller doses or smaller amounts of insulin pre-workout. So you got to factor that in.
Still have something on hand, right? Have something on hand but at a smaller dose, I could see that.
Spit, Skip, spit.
I don't need to.
All right.
Oh, I just dropped that.
Do you guys know anything about the Colorado experiment? Matt Boson says,
an old one.
Yeah, he says the legitimacy / illegitimacy of the Colorado experiment, fact or fiction?
Well, I think by its label, and correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, by its label, the Colorado experiment, it sounds like this scientific thing that was that.
Yeah.
It just basic. Yeah, but it wasn't. I mean, the way I understand it, it was just basically I mean, it was an experiment, but it wasn't this very controlled, group A, group B, placebo, all this sort
like
of shit.
2 or 3 dudes.
Right. And all they did was they played around. And again, Scott, correct me if I'm, because I don't want to fuck this up. This was a long time ago. But who was it?
Casey
It
Viador?
was like in the 70s.
Yeah, Viator. Thank you. Viator. Yep. And they basically were just working on the low volume training, right? And messing with different volume. I better be careful with this because I don't want to fuck this up.
No,
It's
they
been
were,
a long
they
time.
were using, it was when Nautilus machines came out.
Arthur
It
Jones
was.
They
was
were
doing
using
this.
they were using like one giant, one giant set of like 100 reps, and they would rest, pause, and do different things in there. And some dude gained like 30 pounds in 20 days or something.
Casey
But
Viador, he gained 63 pounds. So this is a Wikipedia entry that it says was not this is not up to par, that people have argued it, but at least in this it says the first subject. So it was Arthur Jones doing this with his Nautilus equipment, May 1973. The first subject, Casey Viador, with some crazy forearms, gained 63 pounds of muscle in 28 days, and the second, Arthur Jones, gained 15 pounds of muscle in 22 days.
Yeah, hell of a marketing concept for
Right.
Nautilus. Nice job,
Yeah.
Arthur Jones.
Right.
I
It
mean,
was a Nautilus
really,
push.
yeah, good for him. So if the question is in regards to whether the results are legit, they're clearly not legit.
Yeah. Hey, I got
Those-
a follow up here. And Skip, tell him.
No, I don't know where it's at.
Skip, he saw that I posted this. Skip, you're with me on this. You know that Scott knows shit, that he knows more shit than he's willing to talk about. So Scott, level with us. I have a question. The legitimacy / illegitimacy of Area 51 and or Roswell. Come on.
What do you mean, like legitimacy?
You were
Like,
there. We know you were there.
Yeah, you've been in and out of there. You probably have a card key on
He does.
your keychain. Like we do memberships, yours is for Area 51.
I've never been there.
That's
Yeah,
that's
I
what
have
he
a
was
friend
probably
of mine
told to
that's been
say,
there.
right?
Yep.
I have a friend of mine that's
Exactly.
been there. He told me a story.
I can see government people in the different government agencies right now going, I wait a minute, hold on. I think this motherfucker's talking about Area 51.
Yeah.
We might have to go get him. Come out of the bushes,
S2H.
John. Come out of the bushes.
Agent
Time-
7 might blow it.
Actually,
Woodchuck
it's
the
where
gray
it's-
squirrel.
I'm gonna let the secret out of the bag.
Okay.
Area 51 is where all the politicians come from their spacecraft,
No shit.
along with all the news media people. They have like their own little huts there, and they all grow in there, and they come out. So I have no idea. I don't know.
Gray squirrel has backed off. Gray squirrel has backed off. We're good. Nice job, Lion.
Why do I feel like I was getting set up in that question?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we wanted to know the truth, so we wanted to go to you on that one.
I do have a story. I'll give you one. So a buddy of mine, they were training out there, and they said they saw like some weird lights and stuff and everything, and they got shooed off of the area. They had to leave. But I don't know. That's all I know.
I lived out in New Mexico for several years. I'm not going to lie about this at all. Like, there would be a convoy of black semis with a black SUV in front of it, and
This is going racist really fast.
and a black SUV behind it, all blacked out, and they just be flying down the highway at like 110 miles an hour, and they just pass everybody. Like, they didn't give a fuck. Like, just a convoy. It'd be like 5 semis, blacked out SUV in the front, blackout SUV in the back. Drive it out in the middle of
It's
nowhere.
a testing ground area, so
There's some
Yeah.
it's tested.
Yeah.
Listen, if you worked at Area 51 and you had clearance and you were in with like 10 other dudes, like let's say we all had like blacked out semis.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you haul ass down the highway too?
If you're in the
Acting
government, you could do it.
You'd probably be laughing. You'd probably be like, "Oh, these motherfuckers think there's something. We got an alien in the back or something." When all they're doing is fucking around. You don't know.
They probably had ET in there. ET was in there.
Right,
They passed
exactly.
They passed Scott.
I think they clearly have shit in there.
Yeah.
That obviously, I mean, the government, this is what I don't understand with people. People think that the government needs to tell everybody 100% of what goes on. Nobody can keep their fucking mouth shut ever.
Good point.
So why would they tell anybody? And you don't want the rest of the fucking world to know either.
Yeah.
What is there? There's probably serious fucking shit that could have to do with our national security, defense, whatever. So there are clearly things there that we're not supposed to know are there. Are there aliens? I don't believe in that shit. At the same time, I'll tell you, and which is going to seem contradictory, there's clearly more intelligent life out there somewhere than all of us dumbasses on this rock. I guarantee that.
Well, that's not saying much.
All I'm saying is we don't have little Martians and little fucking aliens in a building in the middle of the fucking desert because we're all too stupid to have figured that out. All we see is the shit that they test, and we naturally just jump to, because everybody's a conspiracy theorist these days, and especially with the internet. So now, it must be that they've got another fucking truckload of aliens and they're hiding Martians, and it's just dumb shit to me.
All right.
But I probably just offended somebody with that, which it wasn't my intention. But to me, it just doesn't, I don't subscribe to it.
I got a fun one. And I'll go to you first on this, Scott, because you guys have both been entrenched in the boards, but I feel like Scott's seen a lot more crazy stuff. I don't know why, Skip. I feel like you've started some crazy stuff.
I always get all the crazy stuff questions.
You do. So what are some of the wildest things you saw as a super mod / admin on a bodybuilding board? And what have you seen from that side of the board, i.e. scammers, crooks, dumbasses, etc.? See, he's got stories.
I got some stories.
Yeah, we could do a whole show on this.
Yeah, I know. That's
I would say this. There's a lot more scammers than people realize. And I'm talking external, not organic to the site, like, the people that are involved. I was tasked for quite a long time with tracking scammers.
By the board or by the government?
No, by the board.
Okay, just being clear here.
And if you're scamming and people know how to know what they're doing, you're gonna get outed.
Okay.
It's only going to go on for so long. I won't really get into all the ways of how, but I mean, I used to keep a file of people that were scammers because scammers will always come back around eventually.
right, exactly.
They're more comfortable in an environment they've scammed in before. And, it's that. And I would say the one thing, I'd say this too, the one thing people would always say is, admins have and supermods have access to private messages and all that, and that's not true. Now, if you're the root admin, so that would be not anyone that's involved with that actual board, not even the owner. If you're the company like WordPress or whatever, I think they probably can get access, but it's not obtainable by anybody else. But scamming, I've seen some really elaborate scams before. I mean, people put a lot of. There's people making a living off of scamming off some of these boards, and they put a lot of time into it. But I'll say this: everybody makes a mistake. Humans are the weak link to anything,
right?
And depending on if it's a WordPress or what kind of board it is, you can have access to a lot of information, and some of it's just good old kind of detective work, but it's kind of sad sometimes, but and sometimes it's regular long-term members will see something that catches their eye, or because people PM all the time on those boards, and they'll see something or something will come up that's they remember from something else, and then that kind of usually what gets it rolling. And then I've seen some pretty elaborate scammers where they're really taking advantage of everything they can. I'm trying to think what else is weird. I'll tell you this too, and this is not on Skip's board. They don't do this, but especially on like a source board, I'd say the majority of the sponsors, if they have 30 sponsors, they're really about 10 sponsors because they just run different flags. Mm-hmm. So when you see people on boards going, hey, so-and-so stuff looks like so-and-so stuff, well, guess what? That's probably so-and-so's the same sponsor. I think that's pretty prevalent.
I could throw a lot of people under the bus. I'd love to throw one particular guy under the bus that I started Intense Muscle because I came from a different board that the guy was just a fucking piece of shit.
Yeah.
And he still is. And his entire life is scamming. And he's very, very good at it. I think it's more difficult when you own the board, but people are, I mean, I hate to say it, but people are so damn stupid sometimes that all you have to do is change. You're literally pretending as the board owner that the sources coming in are just sources that have paid you for sponsorship, and they're actually the owner of the board's new businesses or new gear source businesses.
Well,
and all you have to do is change the name. What it is they're always legit for a little while. You got to build people.
Yeah.
You got to build the traffic, and then it just slowly starts to fall off, and then it goes over a cliff, and then it just gets wiped out. No one hears from them, anything else. And within a couple months or a few months, they come back under a different name, different labeling, different addresses to send money and where the packages come from. And part of it is admittedly it helps them to avoid government, issues, people catching on to the law catching on to them. But the main issue is they're just scamming.
Damn.
And the reason they can continue to do it is because they're scamming, because they change everything all the time. It's difficult for the government to keep up with them.
And, I think another thing is, and it kind of what Skip said, even on legit, not source boards, but regular boards, it looks better if your board has a lot of sponsors. So a lot of times when you see boards that have a lot of sponsors, a lot of those sponsors are either there for free or they're owned by the owner of the board, a lot of them, or they're just fronts. They don't actually, they'll just fronts for something like, let's say they sell protein powder, just as an example, as their main sponsor. Well, they'll have a couple other the small sponsors, on the side page or whatever, that have similar business stuff models, but they're the same company. They're just shipping different labels. Mm-hmm. They're drop shipping different labels because they want their board to look busier. So they throw up a bunch. I find it very well. One board I worked on was pretty legit, and everybody was pretty much who they were. Yeah, and it was a conglomeration of boards. But in general, I think most of the time, they don't want to look. Nobody wants. When you come to a board, and you want to get on there, and you see a lot of different sponsors, and especially the catchy names and stuff. It looks better, and some of the spaces are dead space. Where it just takes you straight to they'll just throw I'll use this is a total example. It's just not the company. Let's say VPX or whatever, a major company. There'll be a banner for that company. It goes to their website, but there's really they're not a paying sponsor. They're just using that space to make themselves look more important.
Yep. And it is very, very common for board owners to, I say pad the daily activity, the members online, all that sort of shit. And pad is a gross understatement for some boards because some boards flat out fucking lie 100 times over about how many people are online at any given time, that sort of thing. There's ways to make your board look. And you know what? I'm not going to sit over here with a halo on my head, but I've never done any of that shit. We have two sponsors.
What they do is, there's an algorithm. So everybody in that 24-hour period that logs onto that board, they hold that screen name as being online.
Right.
Yeah. And then they roll it. It rolls over, and then they only roll a certain amount of them over. And so if you go to some of the boards, now at one time, like RX was freaking insane, the amount of people that were on there. Mm-hmm. But, most boards, if you see there's 2,500 people online, especially in this day and age, that's probably not accurate.
Right.
they use a system to do that. And other than that, I mean, I'm trying to think of anything really.
I can think of one that was pretty crazy. One thing that I saw, there was the board called the Steroid Super Board, and it went out of business like 2006 when Operation Raw Deal happened, and they were the cause of it. That there was like 22 sources that were all in the U.S. and that they were all posting in this board. It was like a private board and everything, and one of the guys had gotten so big that he was like saying he wanted to start advertising in like MD magazine and stuff, like as a source, like taking out ad space. Like he lost his mind. I think they were giving away. I remember they were doing contests. You know how you could do a contest back in the day on the message boards where like the 100th person won something, like, and so everybody would post and post and post. He was giving away like a $70,000 super bike as the prize. Like, I mean, I feel like that was kind of waving it in the face of law enforcement at that point. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like to say like, this is how much money we're making. And they all went down. And I think that laws were changed because that at that point, I think that you could send stuff off to have it tested and get it kind of confirmed to see like what milligrams were and stuff like that. They'd send it off to like a mass spectrometer or whatever. And after that, then the companies that did that were like said they couldn't work with people anymore. Like that was part of, they did that to kind of like protect us, but in a way it kind of hurt us because now there isn't as much testing and stuff on all the UGLs.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's I'm just talking about bodybuilding boards in general. I mean, some like skips are legit and above ground, but I'd say the majority of them have some or a lot of illicit activity going on through them. And it's an interesting crowd. I mean, sometimes because as an administrator or a super mod, but definitely administrator, you can actually see how long some people have actually been online. Sometimes I wonder, what the fuck do these people sleep? You know, it's like, it's almost amazing, but, you know, like I said, there's a lot of scammers and eventually they screw up. You know, they can run all the VPNs and Tor and all that stuff they want, but they're all making a mistake, or they made it, or the biggest, I'll just tell you how it is. A lot of them come in on regular IP addresses, like from a standard, you know, clear IP, and then they start getting into scamming. They start camouflaging their IP address and everything, but they always make that mistake somewhere along the line where they accidentally open up that clear IP address one more time, and it's Pop City. Then you got them, and then you run them off because, you know, you don't want people like that around because they're taking advantage of other members and and stuff like that. And that's usually where the scamming is. It's scamming of other members, you know.
Yeah.
And people that are actually there honestly, you know. So
got a bunch more
which is why we don't have source postings at Intense Muscle. And I'll just say too, because I got to toot my horn, in 2012 we did cap out, and I've never, not one member have I padded, or one time have I padded even with one member, the statistics, and we had 5,200 people online as our peak day in 2012. That's pretty impressive. You have to remember, no gear talk until 2013. We didn't even have a gear forum. The only reason I put the gear forum on there was we were starting to fall off as Facebook started to take over. And I thought, you know what, maybe we need to add this. Maybe it'll help. And it didn't help at all.
And you know, it wasn't always, I wouldn't say all the scamming and different things wasn't always just, it wasn't gear. I mean, it was just regular, you know, more so scamming people on the backside, PM scamming.
Yeah, it's always PM scamming. Yeah. Yep.
What do you mean?
Well, they private message. They get in a private message because posting.
Yeah. But you don't mean, but it's not gear related?
Not always. I mean, sometimes they, you know, they build a big reputation and they start coaching some people or helping people. And then all of a sudden it's like, you know, somebody pays them for some, you know, even if it's, you know, just whatever, you know, just protein powder, whatever, you know, whatever. And so they start trading, and then all of a sudden things start going a little crooked. And then when you start looking at the person closer, you find out that they were under a different screen name 4 years ago, and then you look and find out they had another screen name and a lot of gimmick accounts, and then you start checking pictures they put up or whatever of their prep, and then all of a sudden you find out that that's not even really them.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of that, and I caution people too, when you look online and you see people just get, and not everybody, but there's a lot of cases we've seen where people are getting in really good shape fast, and they're like, and what they'll do is it'll be someone who wants to get a prep business going, and they'll use a gimmick account, and they'll say they're working with their real account, and they'll start posting pictures, and it'll be like, oh man, this is like super impressive. Like people are getting ripped and all this. But then there's ways to take those pictures and look and see where they came from, or are they in the archives of the board? And sure enough, they came from some other dude 6 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there's that
but
guy.
They're using that to drive business,
There's a guy who, that guy who just got really sick that I sent you a screen cap of, Skip. You know what I'm talking about?
You just sent it to me?
Yeah. Prep coach who got very ill. I didn't send it to you just now, just like in the last day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't get me started.
Dude, he's got a website with fake before and after pictures.
Well, listen, I'm not going to pull any punches. People want to know who it is. I'll own it myself. Am I going to put you in a bad position?
No, of course not.
Okay. I think Alex Keichel's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
I call a spade a spade. The guy's a piece of shit. And he is indicative, though. He's not the only one. He's just the one now where it's starting to come. It wasn't even starting to come out now. It started to come out a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I think it kind of started when, he thought he was diced and sliced. I don't know what his words are. I'm paraphrasing. When the rest of the world saw that he wasn't in fucking shape, he was talking about holding water and everything else. Your credibility goes to shit in a situation like that. But you're so blind to it that you don't see it. Posting studies and people buying into how fucking smart you are because you can read studies does not have anything, shouldn't anyway, lend any credibility to what you know or what you can do at all. And everything he has done since then, in my opinion, has just proved that he's a moron. And he's not the only one. He's just the one that apparently is having problems now. And it's sad that he's having problems. Listen, I think he's a piece of shit, but I don't want anything bad to happen to him.
Absolutely
I think
not.
it's fucking horrible.
Yeah.
And I hope he wakes up and figures out he's too damn young to be having all these problems. But when I say he's a piece of shit, just to make sure that I'm being fair when I say that, he misrepresents. He is in no position to be giving out advice, giving information. He needs to sit back, shut his fucking mouth, open his ears, and learn some shit. And not only should he not be training people, but he should learn shit so he doesn't fucking kill himself.
Yeah.
Is it his business? It's absolutely his. He can do whatever the fuck he wants to. So can I. I can sit here after being in the industry for so long, relatively well respected, and I can say, the guy's a piece of shit. He needs to wake up.
Well, I can tell you
tell us what you think, Skip. Tell us what you think. Come on.
I can tell you, I talked to him. I talked to him a couple years ago. No, of course not.
So I apologize. Okay,
no, listen.
right, cool.
I mean, we talked about the podcast that he had, years back on Bodybuilding Nerds Radio. So we ended up directing a lot of our listeners to them, and so I felt kind of responsible for having done that after I figured out that he has been lying and manipulating people. He has fake before and after pictures at his website, and it really bothered me, But at the end of the day, like, I know a guy who worked with him, and he worked with him for a while, and it's like, well, you're going to do what you're going to do. You know what I mean? It's like, you can't stop everybody, but what bothers me is I'm a fan of justice. I don't like people to get taken advantage of, is what it comes down to. And I believe that the health issues that he is suffering now are a direct result of him making a lot of terrible mistakes because he just doesn't understand what he's doing.
And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised. And listen, I may be dead wrong because I don't know the guy very well. I only know what I've heard of him and seen of him and all his fucking shenanigans, because old people use the word shenanigans, I guess, over the last few years. But it's just, what do you expect? You sell a prep for $300 and you're working with people and you're that's what you get. That's the type of information and experience that you're getting with that. and there's so many of them. It makes me sick, and I deal with it all the time. So I used to bitch about it a lot. Now it's just kind of like, you know what? There's all the bitching in the world isn't going to change it until something like this comes out. And then it's like, and I'm not a karma guy. I don't like to say,
God, no.
You know, I don't believe in things happen because you make bad decisions. Bad things happen to you when you make bad decisions. And he's done that for quite a while. It's disappointing because now there's going to be people who walk away after hearing what happened and what he did, thinking that this is somehow indicative of the industry and online trainers, and it's so not. Yeah. It is at the lower levels because these people don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. Trey chimed in and said, "How about having guys on DNP for 20 plus weeks while on 800 calories or less?" It's a mistake.
It's good. It's good for death.
It's a mistake.
You know,
I do hope he gets healthy. But I gotta say I don't have a lot of faith that he'll change because
did somebody do that?
Yeah, that's what he had.
Yeah.
One of his clients I know of personally had talked about that this is what he had done, you know,
for 20 weeks
under his tutelage. So I don't know about 20, but I know of at least 12, 16.
That's. I mean, you like killed a guy.
Well, so I guess since we're talking about it, what I saw was that he was having gallbladder issues. And I know that gallbladder issues are closely related to liver bile, liver health. Mm-hmm. And he needed his gallbladder out, apparently. But he said the hospital wouldn't take it out. And he had a heart attack then at the hospital. So he's kind of, it sounds to me in this post like he's not really, someone else, it was someone else that said, it doesn't seem, and I thought about it, I was like, yeah, I think you're right. It doesn't seem like he was taking much accountability for the situation. It was kind of like someone else's fault. And the way
he was talking about the doctors basically making it sound like I don't. That's why I don't trust doctors to go to the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
Yet you're so fucking smart. They're so stupid while you're sitting here blind to the fact that you're fucking yourself up and creating this giant mess. And they're all talking about you, in the back room, all the fucking doctors and all the nurses about how fucking stupid you are. Everybody else is too, but you just don't fucking see it. Oh my God. He had a heart attack while he was on the table, if I'm not mistaken, and then upset that they couldn't pull his gallbladder because, are you fucking kidding? I need to take a fucking breath because my blood pressure for shit like this, I can't believe that someone could be that fucking stupid.
Peter says, when S2H makes that face and claims overdoing it, you know that it's bad.
No shit, right? When S2H says that is some fucked up shit, that is really fucked up shit.
There's no way you can, if you were to do DNP that long, even more than 15 or so days, you're gonna deplete your essential minerals. You just eventually there's a point where you can't replace them.
Yeah. Well, I know he had that Jamie the Giant from the UK doing that, and he followed it. I know he was doing it. He's one guy that I know he publicly talked about how Alex had him running it high dose long term. So I don't know.
Well, you can push death too.
Yeah.
It's a classic case of knowing just enough to fuck everybody up and fuck yourself up. You'd be better off knowing nothing. He needs to get a real fucking job and get away from the fucking industry. He just completely. God damn it. And I'll stop there. Don't even let me go anymore.
All right. Let's see if we can find some other questions here. We did have some fun stuff. There was a question we talked about on Drugs and Stuff with Dave Crossland. Kisspeptin. So I didn't know anything about this. Victoria is very familiar with it. It plays a bigger role in females. S2H, do you know anything about Kisspeptin?
Well, if Victoria knows about it, that means there's a lot of big words and fancy words. I don't know. Okay. I don't know anything about it.
I didn't think you did. It's not something that's very popular to talk about. Basically, it possibly, from what I vaguely understand from one Google search, is that it can help a man to restore his test levels. I think that's what it was, something along those lines. But don't quote me on any of that.
It's like HMG or
basically it's supposed to be better than HCG. So
HMG.
or
HMG,
yeah, it's better. Yeah, it's supposed to be better than either of them from what I saw in this article. But we looked into it a little bit more. I had the website up, but it's not something I'm very familiar with. I know it's not something I've ever seen available. You know, it's not like something I've seen, but Tim has mentioned it a couple times here, so he's got some interest in it. Let me see what else we got here. We got another off-topic one here. Oh, we also had a birthday shout-out. I got to find that. But Sig P 365. What does S2H think about that?
I'll say this. A lot of people like it because it's a small, higher capacity carry gun.
Yeah.
I can't. Sig's got a lot of quality control issues. I mean, the 320's been recalled 3 or 4 times. I mean, I don't get really into the brand thing, but if you like it, rock it. It's not for me. You know, it's not a very. I mean, it's small. I mean, for carry, it's okay, but.
Well, what is it? A subcompact? I'm not familiar with.
It's a 12+1. It's about the size of a Glock 43.
Okay.
It's a little bit smaller actually at 43, but I mean, it's pretty popular. Actually, I think it's the number this year. I think it's the number 1 selling handgun in the U.S. But it's not my thing. I don't like guns that are that small. You know, it's definitely a subcompact type of gun. But you know, if you like it, rock it.
So my Kimber 9 subcompact, actually it's my wife's because mine is in my car. But you would not be a fan then of the Kimber 9, right?
Looks like a toy.
I mean,
it does. It's very small. You can see how short it is, where my finger isn't even on the Crimson laser sight.
Well, the 365 is small, but you can get a full grip because it's got extended mag. But I mean, dude, if it goes bang and you like it and it works, then it's better than nothing. Any of them,
Well, I think everybody has preference when it comes to carry too. I mean, you can. Do you want stopping power, but it has to be a bazooka?
Stopping power is a myth.
Well, okay, let me ask you this: is it only a myth? Not myth. Is it more a myth now because ammunition has come so far in the last?
It's all about shot placement. Stopping power is a myth.
Well, what about people who don't have the accuracy that you do?
Well, then get accurate.
I'm not going to disagree with that.
You're not going to stop You're not going to stop anybody shooting them in the arms.
Right, but what I'm saying is, if you look, I think you would agree that the large majority of people who carry are not very well trained. So in a high stress situation, never mind just target practice when they aren't very good either, but in a high stress situation, if you've got a 45, a hollow point, and you hit them in the shoulder, that's gonna be more stopping power than hitting them in the shoulder. And when I say hit them in the shoulder with a bad shot, basically, than from my Kimber 380.
Not necessarily. I mean, so you got a right-handed shooter as your threat, and you sling one high right and hit him in the left shoulder. He's still got a right hand. He's still standing there in front of you.
We got a couple more bodybuilding questions,
22 caliber kills more people in the U.S. than any other caliber still.
You're kidding.
Nope.
That's surprising.
Yeah, wow. I would think it'd be like something popular, like a 9 or something.
Yeah.
22.
Wow. All right. Bodybuilding it is.
All right. We got a couple more. We're going to try to whip through this quickly. Are there any tips to training the obliques to pull in during a vacuum? I can pull the rectus abs in relatively easy, but in the rare instances that I can actually get the feel for one of the obliques from pulling the ribs up, it feels like one side is engaged and the other is telling me to suck it.
Yeah, it's not an oblique issue. It's a transverse abdominis issue. It's. I think he's mistaking. I mean, when it comes to a vacuum, the oblique isn't going to. I mean, correct me if you guys think I'm wrong, but I don't see the connection there with an oblique. Vacuum is almost entirely transverse abdominis. It has very, very little to do even with the strength of the abdominal wall itself.
I could see that. I know that there's been a lot of guys practicing vacuums nowadays, and the more you practice it, the more you can strengthen those transverse abs and pull it in better. Like I've seen guys make great progress, 8 weeks. I think it was Juan Morel talked about his protocol where he would suck in, hold it for, I think it was like 20 seconds, and he would do that 10 times every day. And I've told guys to try that. I've tried it myself, and I could see a difference. There's no question. But yeah, it has nothing to do with your obliques, does it?
Well, and vacuum can help your marriage too. But
that is true.
Vacuum the floor.
Goddamn right.
Yeah.
Guy named Karim Ali. He says, have my birthday coming in on Tuesday and wanted to send some good vibes for all that you guys do. And thank you guys for all the great work that you have put in this podcast. And thank you, Skip, for keeping with my annoying ass. Cheers, guys.
Oh, happy birthday. I didn't know that his birthday was that soon. Mine is next Monday, too. So we're pretty close there.
Don't you give out a free month of training on birthday months?
No. No.
Hire Scott McNally, people.
Yeah. You can get a free training month on your birthday from Scott McNally.
Get a hold of me. We'll discuss that.
Yeah, exactly.
If you were to lock S2H and Skip in a room with enough oxygen for one person, who is still breathing?
Oh, that's easy. He's still breathing because I talk too much.
He carries a Kimber, I carry a Glock, so he's going to lose.
More stopping power.
The stopping power, the gun doesn't matter. It's actually the accuracy, and I'm pretty sure that you would get me very, very quickly.
And the amount of air. We both could die together, though. Holding hands.
Holding each other. Yeah, spooning each other.
All right. One more real question here. Insulin and GH are supposed to have a synergy when it comes to muscle building. Does metformin or other over-the-counter GTAs also have muscle building benefits with pairing with GH? I know it's beneficial to control glucose, but I'm curious if those are not wanting to take insulin can utilize a strong GDA in its place.
I think you're getting more muscle growth out of a GDA than growth hormone. I think we've talked about this before. I mean,
well, growth would be in it no matter what. It's insulin and growth or GDA and growth.
Mm-hmm. Insulin, of course, but I think metformin's not over the counter. But by the way, but I mean, you can use metformin in similar ways. But I mean, I don't think some good old Humalog can get beat by anything.
Yeah, he's saying though, like, could it for someone who doesn't want to go to that step of using insulin?
Well, yeah, I mean, metformin. It's not the same as insulin, but
right.
You're still shuttling glucose. So I mean, it's you can get, I mean, it'll work. I mean, is it going to be as good? Are you going to get as much out of it as insulin? No, but I mean, it's still. I don't know. I don't want to give a percent to it. Let's say metformin gives you 50% of what Humalog will, something like that. But it's still how you time your diet, how you use everything. I mean. I don't know. What do you think, Skip?
Do I want to answer this? I don't. I'm with you in the sense, but I don't know if we're on the same page. If we feel the same with why they're not the same, I don't see insulin as a GDA. No, I
agree. That was probably a bad analogy.
Yeah,
but I mean, they have similar characteristics.
Yeah. But I do think that using a GDA like metformin though it does shuttle, it also has this property where it just kind of can not wipe out. And now I'm going to pass on it. Well, it's
a disposing agent where insulin's not a disposal.
Right, exactly. And all I'm saying is the reason I'm passing on it is because I have a couple theories on that I'm not very confident with enough to put it out there. Yeah. And I'm just being honest. I'm not confident enough, and I don't know. It would be something that I would sit around with you guys and talk and debate with, but I don't want to put it out there as this is why, because I can't know for sure. But I will say, I mean, my answer, and this isn't going to come across to some people is a very good answer, but I would tell him that low dose insulin Low-dose insulin dosed correctly, and a lot of people will fuck up insulin dosing thinking that 1 unit is actually 10 units. And you would be shocked at how many people do this. Veterans, people who are smart. I did it.
I never did it. I wasn't that dumb.
I know. I think a lot of people would be surprised at how many people have done that.
Yeah.
If you can actually dose it correctly and go low-dose insulin, you would be better off doing low-dose insulin. And it is and can be relatively innocuous as long as you don't become complacent and get those dosages too high. And when I say high, they got to go pretty high, because the only time really that people have a problem with insulin is complacency. It's not usually a first-time user who has problems. It's the veteran who becomes complacent, like, oh, I'm going out to get my mail. I can feel I'm going a little hypo. I'll get it when I come back in. And then they end up on their fucking lawn because they thought they had time because they had used it forever. That's what happens more often than the first time. The first timer's like 2 minutes after they take it and they've just eaten 70 Oreo cookies. I think I'm going hypo. I think I need more carbs. I just feel like I'm going hypo.
Yeah.
They're kind of panicked. They're anxious about it. They're paying attention. They're aware. The veterans don't do that.
Yeah, I think metformin for me was, I only found it to be a viable option after like big, heavy cheat meal days, like when you're really, let's say you're on a really clean kind of medium carb diet and you just go hog shit wild one day, where you're not going to be able to utilize all those carbohydrates and that anyway. So it's like that. What's that drug where you take and you crap all the fat out?
Xenical?
Xenical, yeah. It's kind of like Xenical. So, that's not apples to apples, but similar. So, if you go, I remember on some Thanksgivings I used it when I was just stuffing shit down my face.
Oh, God.
100 miles an hour. Stuff like that. But I know some people have used it pretty creatively on a regular basis and made it work, but it takes you have to have a diet lined up. You have to have I would say it takes a little more expertise and effort than insulin.
I agree with that.
It's not quite as cut and dry to use.
Right.
Yeah.
We have James Hastings. So sorry to go back to the DMP topic. So I'm assuming that you all don't recommend the use of DMP. Alex has said that he advocates DMP as not being harmful if done correctly. Honestly wondering. He also says that it has the opposite effect, basically building mitochondria, opposite of what Victoria Felkar says. So
when he says Alex, is that the guy
that we were just talking about?
Question?
No, he's referring to Alex saying that that's what he's saying. That's what Alex says.
I mean, no disrespect to the guy asking the question, but I'm not even going to respond because Alex said it. He's a fucking moron, and you shouldn't even listen to what he says. Yeah. And I'm not even. That's where I go with it.
I'm kind of surprised, honestly, that
DMP, if it was done correctly, in a very short span, 5 to 7 days, and there's a very elaborate supplement protocol that goes with it, and it's a whole sheet. Paper long of shit you take, and when you do it the right way, it works really, really well. But I would never advocate. I don't advocate using it now, but if you did, you have to know exactly the way to use it, and you can't skimp out on it. It's a very elaborate protocol, and it works. But I would never tell anybody to go longer than maybe 7 days tops.
And I think
because really it's one thing real quick. So one thing people understand is you don't take a lot of DMP. You can take a very small amount if you use the proper essential minerals, supplementation that all goes with it. It accelerates the whole process, but it doesn't make you burn up. And I had a guy, I think he talked about this on a podcast, but I don't want to say his name. He ran that thing to a T one time. I think it was for 7 days. And maybe it was 7 days, I believe. And I think he lost 15 pounds of body fat, legitimately.
Wow.
And he ran it. He did not deviate one bit from the diet or the supplement plan, because there's a shitload of stuff you have to take with DNP to make it work. That way you don't have to take that much of it. And
oh, that's what I did. And it was for 5 days, and I lost 8 pounds, something like that.
That was the same plan, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, it works, and it's one of those things. Though, it's you get in, you get out.
Yeah.
Don't get greedy.
You don't do 20 weeks, and I'll tell you what, it's not going to build mitochondria. It's like not going to improve your lifespan. Victoria wouldn't discuss this with him either, so I can speak for her in saying that. Like, she would never discuss that with him. It just wouldn't happen. That's ridiculous.
It's like Indian liquor, man. It'll sneak up on you right when you think, oh, I'm all good. You're not all good.
Well, let's get out of here, guys. Anything we should mention before we go? Go to Intense Muscle. That's important.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, if you guys haven't gone over to check out the Intense Muscle message board, Skip's got that thing up and running. It's relaunched. They've got T-shirts, sweatshirts, tank tops available. So check that out. Right?
Is Dr. Scott posting?
He is. So is the roundtable panel. The roundtable expert panel is in place, and Dante and Dusty Hanshaw. They both committed at the last minute.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so Dante is coming back, and just a lot of the old school, the Justin Harris.
Nice.
And I don't want to miss anybody when I say it, so I'm just rattling off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But the old Justin Harris, Jason Theobald, who some of these guys were members before anybody knew who the fuck they were.
Yeah.
And of course, some of them have gone on to go from basically nothing in the industry to a lot of them having pro cards. So there's a lot of knowledge, on that panel. And we're bringing back the Intense Set of the Month. We'll be giving away True Protein, bags of Team Skip True Nutrition. I said True Protein.
I'll
Team
take
Skip
it back.
True. I know that's old school, right? Team Skip 5-pound bags of protein. Money, $150 to the Elite FTS store, T-shirts, hoodies, all that shit. So check it out.
I'm going to log in tonight. And
Do
Skip,
that.
by the way, I'm still checking my mail for my protein bags, and I haven't seen them come in.
I know. I always forget about that until, like times like this.
You got to enter the Intense Set of the Month.
Yeah, you got to win the Intense Set of the Month.
I'm just going to fire up all my gimmick accounts.
All right, let's get out of here for another episode of Blood, Sweat, and Gear. Guys, this program is brought to you by True Nutrition. Check them out. Everything's third-party tested, high-quality supplements. Use our code ADVICES for additional savings and to support our programming. Guys, if you're watching this on video, do us a favor. Hit the like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. If you are listening to this on iTunes, do us a favor. Give us a good 5-star review. You'll help other people find the show. All right, guys, we're out of here.